Okay, so this video is going to focus on triad inversions. So once you understand root position triads, we don't always see or construct or hear triads in real music in root position because it doesn't create as smooth of a transition between chords. And so basically the concept of an inversion is we still have a root and a third and a fifth. So you can see here on the screen we've got a C major triad, C, D, E. And that's our basic triad, generic triad pattern, CEG, and 3 consecutive lines, and it happens to be a major third on the bottom and a perfect fifth between the root and the fifth. And right now, the root is on the bottom. Whatever the note is, the bottom note of a chord is called the bass note. And in a root position chord, like the one that's constructed here, the bass note is also the root. So in a C triad, that is in root position, meaning 3 consecutive lines constructed in thirds, the C is in the bottom. So the C is the bass note and the C is the root. And if you were in C major, that would also be the tonic of the scale, C major. Okay, so we call that lowest note the bass note. And like I said, we also call it the root in root position. So when we invert the chord, that means we're going to flip a note that is on the bottom up to the top. So we're going to take that C natural and move it up an octave. Okay, and so you'll see that that C goes up an octave. And now we still have the same 3 notes. We still have C, E, G, but now the bass note is E. Okay, so that would be a first inversion triad, which means the third of the chord is in the bass. So the third of the chord is the lowest note. And so now you'll see we have we have third, fifth root, E, G, C. So we had do, mi, so if we were in C major, now we have mi, so, do. And that's called first inversion. We would represent that with the sixth because there is a sixth between E and C. And so we call this a C. We still have to call it a C chord because the root is still C. C, E, G are the 3 notes. But now we have to call it a C6 chord. In this case, a C major 6, because the C is the root and the root is the 6th above the bass, meaning the bass is the third of the chord. Because when we invert a third, it becomes a 6. So C to E was a third, and then we flipped it over, and now it's a 6th. So we call that first inversion. C major 6, or C major triad in first inversion. Now, if we flip it again, now we have the third of the chord up an octave. So here's the C6. And now we have the bass as the 5th of the chord. So now instead of C, E, G, root position C chord, we had E, G, C, which was a first inversion. And now, so, do, mi. Now the bass note is the 5th of the chord. So this is called second inversion. And we represent this with a 6 and a 4, because now there's a 6 and a 4th above the bass. Okay, the E is the 6th above, and the root is the 4th above. So 6, 4 would be a second inversion triad. And if we invert it again, it becomes a root position triad again. So with triads, since there's only 3 notes, you could only have 2 inversions: root position, and then first inversion, second inversion. So that's 3 positions total, the first one being root. So then that would be root position again. Okay, so here is just kind of a general concept of what your inverted triads would look like when they're in closed position, meaning they're within an octave. Okay, so then I created for you a little chart here of not just C chords, but all different triads inverted. So I did an F triad, which is F-A-C. I'm going to pretend that these are all treble clef. I just put them all on treble clef, but I didn't actually write the clef. But we have an F-A-C chord here. First inversion, which would mean we would take that root, which is the F, and we put it up an octave to a 6th between A and F. And so now we have, instead of F-A-C, now we have A-C-F, with A to F being a 6th. So we would call this an F6 chord. In this case, it's major because we have an F-A major third, and then F to C is a perfect fifth. So this is an F major triad. This would be an F major 6, meaning it's still an F chord because we still have the same 3 notes, F, A, and C, but now the A, which is the third of the chord, is in the bottom. Okay, and then if we flip it over again, now we have C, F, A. Now the 5th of the chord, which is the C, is in the bottom. So now we have a 6 and a 4th above. So that would be second inversion with the fifth in the bass and a sixth above and a fourth above. That'd be F major 6/4, C, F, A, with the fifth of the chord in the bottom. All right, so here's D chord, so that would be D, F, A. If we flip the D up the octave, now we get F, A, D. D is still the root, so we would still call it a D chord because D, F, A is the triad. And it's still a D, F, A chord, but F is now on the bass, the third of the chord. So now that would be a D6 chord. And this is minor, by the way. D, F is a minor third. D to A is a perfect fifth, and which creates D, F, A, minor triad, and F to A would be a major third. So minor third on the bottom, major third on the top, perfect fifth in the outer voices creates a minor triad. So this would be a D minor triad in root position, D, F, A. And then we have F, A, D, which means that the F, the third of the chord, and again, always think about which member of the chord, root, third, fifth. So D is the root, F is the third, A is the fifth. And now we have third, fifth, root. The third is in the bass. And now we get that sixth above the bass is the root. And that means it's a first inversion triad because the third of the chord is in the bass. And if we flip it again, that F going up the octave, so F here goes up the octave, and now we have the fifth, root, third, meaning the fifth is on the bottom. So that is going to create a fourth above the bass, which is the root, and then the sixth, which is the third of the chord. So fifth, root, third. That would be a D minor 6/4. 6/4 meaning second inversion. The fifth of the chord is in the bass. Fifth, root, third. All right, so here's a C triad, which we already did. C major, C major. So when E is on the bass, here's the root, root, third, fifth, third, fifth, root, fifth, root, third. So when a third is in the bottom, that would be a C6 chord. Okay, meaning the C is the root still, C, E, G is the triad, but now the E is in the bottom. And then C6/4 would be still C, E, G, same three notes. It's still a C triad, but it's in second inversion, meaning the fifth is on the bottom. And then an E flat triad, this is B E flat major, E flat to G, major third, E flat to B flat, perfect fifth, E flat, G, B flat, and G to B flat is a minor third on the top, E flat to G is a major third on the bottom. That creates that major triad. So this is E flat major with 3 consecutive lines. When we take the root, again, here's the root, third, and fifth. Here's the root, third, and fifth. We take the root and we move it up the octave. Now the third is in the bottom. 3, 5, root. So that would be an E flat chord. Still, we still have the same 3 notes, so it's still an E flat triad, but the bass note is now the third of the chord, not the root. So now it's E flat, G, B flat, E flat, the root is on the top. And it doesn't really matter what order these other 2 notes in. It's always about what the bass note is. Whatever the bottom note is, that's going to tell you the inversion. Okay, so in the third, when the third of the chord is in the bass, that's first inversion. So we call that E flat major 6. And then finally we get the E flat major 6/4. Now we have B flat, E flat, and G. And again, these order doesn't matter the order of the upper notes. It's just whatever's in the bottom. The E, G, B is the chord. So B is the fifth, B flat in this case. That means it's a second inversion chord. So then we get 6/4. E flat major 6/4. Okay, so then I want to just kind of do some practice with like figuring out the bass note of these. So again, when the root of the chord is in the bass, that is root position. Okay, when the third of the chord is in the third of the triad is in the bass, that's in first inversion, which we call a 6 chord. And then when the fifth of the triad is in the bass, that's second inversion, which we label 6/4. Second inversion triad, 6/4. Okay, so then once you understand that concept of just like we have triads that, just like intervals, that can be inverted, understanding what member of the triad is in the base tells you the type of inversion. And then here it is just doing like E major 6. So think about the E major triad. That would be E would be the root, G sharp would be the third, and B would be the fifth. So if it's a 6 chord, 6 means first inversion, which means the third of the chord is in the bass. So the bass note of an E major 6 chord would be the third of the chord, which is G sharp. F sharp augmented 6/4. So the F sharp would be the root. Augmented 6/4, so we need FAC. So then this is the root, this is the third, this is the fifth, but F sharp to A sharp is a major third, and we need an augmented fifth between F sharp and C double sharp, which would create a major third, both between the root and the third and the fifth, creating an augmented fifth between the other voices. And a 6/4 chord means it's in the second inversion, which means the fifth of the bass, or the fifth of the chord is in the bass. So F sharp augmented 6/4, the bass note would be C double sharp. So then E diminished 6, or E flat diminished 6, sorry, E flat, G flat, B double flat would be the diminished chord. E flat to G flat, that would be a minor third. G flat to B double flat, that would be a minor third. E flat to B double flat would be a tritone, a diminished fifth. And we're asking for E flat diminished 6. So again, this is 6, this is 6/4. I'll just put it here so you can see it, so I don't have to move over every time here. But the third of the chord is in the bass when it's a 6 chord. So here's the root, third, fifth. That would be the third, G flat. And then C flat augmented 6/4. What's the bass note of C flat augmented 6/4? So C flat is the root. E flat would be the third. That's a major third. And then we need G natural to give us that augmented fifth between C flat and G natural. And that would be the fifth. So C flat, E flat, G natural. G natural would be the fifth. Okay? And then this is just kind of a exit ticket that if you want, this is in your assignment for the in Canvas, if you want to click that just to make sure you understand. And then Triad Inversion ID on the staff. This would be like the opposite of what we did. So like not constructing them, but being able to like identify them. Okay, so let me just make sure that these are. Okay, so this is a root position. Okay, so you wouldn't have to worry about the inversion, but in this case, you do have to take into account these because this C natural here would actually be C sharp because of the key signature. So this is A sharp, C sharp, and E natural, which is diminished triad. That is a minor third between 1 and 3, the root and the third, and then there's a diminished fifth between A sharp and E natural. That would be the tritone diminished, so that's diminished. Okay. Actually got inverted. Okay, so when we go to, I need to actually set this up, sorry, chord identification, because it wasn't the right. So I'm going to go here and just do what we did before, but this time I'm going to put inversions. Okay, so now you can see that there is a fourth above the bass and a sixth above the bass. So that's going to be a 6/4 chord. This is a second inversion triad. The 3 notes you have here are C sharp, E sharp, and G sharp. C, E, G is the triad. So you would label this C sharp 6/4, but then you have to figure out the quality here. The quality is major because you have C sharp to E sharp, which is a major third, and then E sharp to G sharp, if it was in root position, would be that minor third. When we invert it, it's still a major triad. C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, but G sharp is in the bottom. So we would call this C sharp major 6/4. Okay, so this is C flat, F, A flat. So you got to think about this and being, this is a 6th above the bass, this is a 4th above the bass. And so that would give you a second inversion triad. The 5th is in the bottom because we have F, A, C. F, A, C is the triad pattern. You always got to think about it in root position. There are 7 triad patterns that I taught you in the last video, right? ACE, EGB, BDF, FAC, ACE, DFA, and so on. This one would be FAC because we have an F, an A, and a C. The C is the root of, is the 5th of the chord because here's the root, C, E flat, G flat. That would be a C diminished 6/4 chord, second inversion. It's diminished. This is root position because you have 3 consecutive lines. So then you're just thinking E flat, G, B natural. There is a flat in the key signature, but they made it at natural. So this would be a major third, and from E flat to G, and then G to B natural would be a major third or an augmented 5th. Between E flat and B natural, that would be an augmented triad. Okay, here's our root position. That'd be C minor, because it's C, E flat, G, just minor triad and root position. Okay, back to alto clef. So now we have C, E, A. This is C sharp, E sharp, A sharp. So root position, you would think those 3 notes, and it would be A, C, E. And there's a 6th above the bass, so that means it's first inversion. We flipped this note up an octave. So this is A sharp, C sharp, E sharp. And A sharp, well, this is kind of confusing because you have to deal with double sharps or whatever, but it's actually A sharp minor because everything is sharped in A sharp minor. So you would have a minor triad. And this one is G sharp, C, E natural, and they do have these flats, but we need to ignore this flat completely because there isn't a B flat in the key. There isn't a B in this chord. This is in the chord, but they've made it a natural. So this is C, E, G sharp because C, E, G is the triad pattern in root position, meaning G is the 5th, and it is in the bass. So this is a 6/4 chord, second inversion. So C natural, E natural, G sharp would be an augmented triad. We'd call this C augmented 6/4. Okay, the other thing that might be helpful for you is to look at, like, when we hear triad inversions, it might help you to also identify them visually as well. When you think about the formula, when you have a major chord in root position, it's a major third and a minor third. And then we invert it, it's a minor third plus a perfect 4th. So we're hearing a perfect 4th, major triad, first inversion. We have a minor third plus a perfect 4th. In second inversion, we have the perfect 4th on the bottom, and then a major third on the top. Bottom, here comes the bride, perfect 4th, major third on the top. That'd be a major triad in second inversion, or 6/4. So you can see that the interval patterns switch based on what inversion you're in. So for minor, you see the ones in green here, we have a minor third plus a major third. La, do, mi, or do, re, so. When we flip it, we get that major third in the bottom, and then a perfect 4th in the top. Notice that the perfect 4th is in the top for first inversion triads in both major and minor. But when it's a minor first inversion, the major third is on the bottom because it was on the top when it was in root position. And when it's a major first inversion, the minor third is on the bottom when it's in first inversion. Major first inversion, minor third is on the bottom. And then we have a perfect 4th on the bottom and a minor third on the top. That would be a minor triad in second inversion. So, do, me, or mi, la, do. Okay? So then diminished, you can see we have 2 minor thirds, obviously in first inversion, or in root position, which we already did in the last video. When we flip it, the tritone is no longer in the outer voices, but it's now, now the tritone's in between the top 2 notes. So we have a minor third and a tritone, that's a diminished triad in first inversion. And then we have the second inversion, meaning the tritone is in the bottom, and then the minor third is on the top. So that would be a diminished second inversion. And the thing about augmented triads is that they don't aurally invert. When we invert it, it just becomes the sound as it's major thirds, and on top of major thirds, they become another, at least the sound is an augmented triad. They won't be constructed that way, that you can like visually see an augmented triad inverted, but you won't hear a difference if it's like an aural skills like assessment of some kind. So for example, if I was to build, let's say I said, build me a C augmented 6/4, that would be, in treble clef, that'd be C, E, G sharp. But 6/4 means the G sharp would be on the bottom because that's the fifth of the chord, because this chord would be spelled, C, E, G sharp, major third, augmented fifth. But we put the G sharp because it's the fifth of the chord on the bottom. So this would be G sharp, C, E. But if you notice, G sharp sounds like A flat, which would be A flat, C, E natural. That would sound like another root position augmented chord, because C, E, G sharp, and maybe G sharp would sound like an A flat, and then we get that two major thirds, or that diminished fourth sounds like a major third. And so aurally, we actually can't invert an augmented triad. Okay, visually you can, but it'll sound the inharmonic equivalent of the root position augmented chord. Okay, so hopefully that gives you at least some clarity on triad inversions, and we'll do some more practice and review of these on Monday when we come back.